Good morning, everybody. Rob here on the Sportster 72 in beautiful Bakersfield, California. And welcome to Throwback Thursday. This week's episode is going to be titled The Flip Top Head. Now, for those of you who are a little squeamish, you may not want to listen to this one, because it's a little sad, it's a little graphic, but it's one of those stories that I feel needs to be told. And it illustrates why you should not drink and drive. And the reason I'm doing this story is because this past week I have had like 4 different doctor's appointments, and at pretty much every one of them I've had to recount all the injuries to my body, which has brought to mind some of the bad things that I've seen and had to deal with, and this is one of them. So let's get to the story. Okay, I was working Eastern Division. I was working Unit 46 John. 46 was the beat number. John indicated I was a one-man patrol car. And I was working graveyard, which is third watch. I'm up in the Sierra Mesa area on patrol. It's around 2 o'clock in the morning. All the bars are closing and people are heading home. And you can always count on having traffic accidents when the bars close and people head home. And sure enough, I get a radio call to go investigate a traffic accident down on southbound 805 south of Arrow Drive. So I head down there, and it's really dark down there. They don't have any street lights or nothing like that, so I'm driving along trying to find this accident. When I spy some tail lights of a car sitting off to the side of the road. So I slow down and figure, okay, that's probably got to be it. Sitting over there in the emergency lane. As I get closer, I got my bright lights on, I put the spotlight on. I can see steam rolling up out of the front of the car. And what I see is, I see this Mustang sitting there. Steam rolling up out of the hood area, front end, and he's sitting behind a flatbed 18-wheeler that was parked in the emergency lane. I'll get up there, stop, get out, go up with my flashlight to check the driver. As I get up there, I see that the whole roof of the car has been peeled back like a sardine can all the way back to the rear passenger compartment, and the whole front end of the car is smashed in. Well, I figure out that what had happened is the guy had ran right into the back end of that flatbed 18-wheeler parked there in the emergency lane. He had gone underneath of it, and the flatbed part had just peeled back the roof of the car right at the top of the windshield level. And he had gone underneath there and hit the rear tires with the front end of his car. He is going at so much speed, such force, that when he hit the tires, it actually made the trailer move and made him bounce back out from underneath the trailer. So I go up to check the guy out. He's kind of slumped over in the seat, and you know, you can smell the alcohol. It was obvious that he was drunk. I check him out. He doesn't really have a whole lot of injuries, visible injuries to him. He's got a few cuts and scratches, not even really bleeding that much. So I tell him to sit still, got the ambulance on the way. Now this is also right after the city had taken away ambulance duty from the police department and turned it over to the fire department. And they had made the fire department guys, they were all trained to be paramedics, where we were only EMTs. And they had full outfitted ambulance rigs, the whole bit. So, you know, I had absolutely nothing with me, no first aid kits or anything. Because in the city's infinite wisdom, they decided, well, since the fire department had paramedics now and everything, the police officers didn't need first aid kits or nothing. That was going to cost too much to outfit every patrol car with a first aid kit. So I didn't even have any bandages with me. Not a thing. So I'm telling the guy, okay, sit still, you know, don't move. He's sitting there trying to start the car up. Because he's drunk, he don't know what's going on. So I take the keys out of the ignition, I'm sticking them in my pocket so we can't keep trying to start the car up, because the car ain't gonna start. The whole radiator smashed in back into the engine and everything, and I don't know if there's gas leaking or not. I didn't smell any. All I smelled was radiator fluid. But you never know, you know, and you don't want him sitting there trying to crank the thing over, spark it up, and then everybody go up in flames. So I did him calm down and tell him to stay put, quit trying to start the car, quit trying to get out of the car, you know, just sit there, you might have neck injuries and stuff. So he just kind of sits back and relaxes. So then I go over to the other side of the car to check on this female passenger that he's got with him. And she's sitting up in the seat, talking and everything, saying what happened. You know, apparently she had fallen asleep and had no idea what had happened. And I told her, well, you know, you're in a little accident, you know, everything's gonna be okay, sit still, and, you know, ambulance is on its way. And she starts touching her face, and, you know, she's going like this on her face and looking down at her hands, and well, she's got blood all over her hands. And she's, you know, going, oh, I bleed. I'm going to tell her, yeah, you got a small cut on your head, you know. It's nothing to worry about, you know, just small blood. Well, I'm sitting there with my flashlight and investigating her injuries. And what had actually happened is that she had been sitting up in the seat, kind of laid back, fell asleep. When they went in underneath that 18-wheeler and it peeled the roof of the car off, it caught her right at the scalp line or the hairline, and it had actually scalped her, and it had peeled back her head, the skin off of her head, and flipped it back like a cheap toupee flapping in the wind. So she's sitting there with the top of her head peeled back, and I could see her skull. And there was actually a portion of her skull was missing, and you could actually see part of her brain. And there's little bone fragments and crap in it. And I'm, you know, sitting there shocked and amazed that she's just sitting there talking and alert, like nothing is wrong. And her damn brain is sitting there exposed to the elements. Well, she starts, you know, she's still feeling her face, you know, and I'm telling her, you know, quit touching your face, you know, all that stuff. Well, then she's trying to, you know, feel above her face to find out where the blood's coming from. And I keep telling her, put your hands down, you know, quit moving around, you know, you might have neck injuries. You know, just sit still till the ambulance comes and everything. Well, she's trying to get out of the car. She wants to get out of the car and look in the mirror and see how bad she's messed up. You know, how, I guess that's a typical woman thing, but I guess anybody would want to do that, I guess. Well, I can't, you know, let her go getting out of the car or leaning forward and looking, putting the visor down and looking in the mirror. And I can't let her be sticking her fingers up there in her brain. I mean, God, you know, who knows what her reaction is going to be if she realizes really just how bad she's injured. So I'm sitting there lying to her, telling her it's just a, you know, minor cut, you know, you're going to be all right. The fire department's coming, the ambulance is coming, I'm gonna take you to the hospital, everything will be okay. And I'm sitting there waiting, and it seems like forever for the ambulance to get there and the fire department to get there. And she keeps reaching up, and I'm trying to hold her hands down. And so I figure, okay, best thing I could do to calm her down is I take that flap of skin with her hair on it that's laying back behind her head, and I flop it back over to cover up her skull and her brain. So at least it's not just sitting there exposed anymore to the elements. And I'm sitting there holding her hands, telling her it's all going to be okay. And she's just, you know, going on talking like a normal drunk person would be. Well, fire department finally gets there. And they, of course, go straight to the driver. And I'm trying to get their attention to come over to her because she's the one that's hurt the worst. Yeah, I got boxed in here. Finally get one of the paramedics to come over, and I, you know, try to quietly tell him what's wrong with her and what I had found when I got on scene. Well, he couldn't believe me. So he sits there and he takes his flashlight, looks down there, and he takes the lip of her hair and lifts it up, and sure enough, the whole dang top of her skin with her hair and everything comes up, and he goes, "Oh my God," and he puts it back down. So they took and packed her with some gauze and stuff around there and wrapped it in place over the flap of skin. Got her out of the, you know, put neck brace on her and everything, got her out on the backboard, laid her on there, and took her off to the hospital. The traffic unit shows up to do the investigation because they didn't trust patrol officers to do that in-depth of a traffic accident investigation, though I could have done it, but it would have taken me 4 or 5 hours to do that investigation and had to do follow-up in the hospital and all that crap. So it's best that the traffic investigators show up and do that. And I head off back to my beat. And it was a pretty quiet morning. You know, nothing else comes along until usually in the mornings, just before you get off shift on graveyard, you can usually count on getting a call for somebody that has a heart attack. Usually some wife will wake up and find her husband laying in bed next to her, and you know, he's had a heart attack, so you usually count on a call like that. And you can always count on rush hour traffic accidents, people going into work early. And I get off shift and I go home. Come back in the next night for my next shift on the graveyard. And the traffic accident investigator comes over to ask me some questions, because by the time he had got on scene, both of the victims had already left. And he wanted to know what kind of shape they were in when I got there. And I told him, well, you know, the driver was obviously drunk, had very minor scratches on him, and in my opinion, he had probably fallen asleep or passed out and slumped over in the seat, and that's why he didn't get injured. And just had some minor glass cuts on him and stuff. I'm trying to get out of the car and start it up or whatever. And then we got to talking about the woman. I told him, well, you know, I get over there and check on her, and the whole top of her head is flipped back, and her skull's exposed, and part of her brain's showing. So I took and flipped the flap of skin back over the top to cover it up, so she wasn't exposed to the elements. Well, come to find out that she had died later that morning at the hospital in the ER from her injuries. But there wasn't a damn thing I could have done for her out there on the scene. I didn't even have a first aid kit. So I didn't feel responsible in any way for her death. I still think it was best for me to flop that top part of skin back over to cover up her skull and brain. I don't personally think that contributed to her dying. Nobody ever said it did. But then again, nobody ever said it was good that I did that. So, I don't know. It's one of them things that haunt you. Would she have been better off if I'd have left the top of her head flopping around back there in the back and left her brain exposed, or would she have died sooner? Especially if she'd have stuck her hand up there and poked her finger into her brain. Who knows what that would have done to her. So, that's pretty much the end of that story. And the moral of that story is, don't drink and drive. And don't get in a car with somebody that's been drinking and driving. Because it's very easy for them to fall asleep at the wheel, drift off the side of the road, and hit something. And you can end up dead. So there you go, I'm almost at my off ramp to go to work. And I know this story was gross. I know it had a sad ending. And yeah, it bothers me to this day. I don't know, did I do the right thing or not? I'll never know. I asked doctors about it later, and there's no way they could have known. They would have said that it probably didn't make any difference. But anyway, see y'all next week. Not going to be any lane splitting videos this week, because like I say, I've been going to the doctors all this week and haven't really had time to do any videoing and editing, and I'm not going to bother going into the doctor's appointments and what for and why and what they said, because that's all depressing. It's just all bad news. So see you next week. Everybody ride safe and don't drink and drive. Bye-bye. Alright, I gotta take this thing, put it in neutral, take my hand off the clutch lever. Now, yes, I know in the safety courses they tell you leave it in gear with your hand on the clutch lever. I can't do that. My left hand goes numb, I lose all the strength in my fingers, and the hand slips off the clutch lever and I kill the engine. So that's why I sit at these lights. It's going to be a long period of time when I sit in neutral and the clutch out. And that's also why I use more rear brake than I do front brake, because I have the same problem with the right hand. Fingers go numb, I lose my strength, and I can't feel nothing. Yeah, the damn doctors told me I should quit riding. But screw them, what do they know? Okay, now I'm really done. Okay, taking a little page there from Sean and saying goodbye several times in one video. I hope you don't mind, Sean. Now I'm going to really shut up and say goodbye. See y'all next week. Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it.